The next lesson is lesson 13 on the aorist tense. So we're going to be looking at the first aorist active and the first aorist middle. So there is new vocab, memorize like always. And then notice here that it says that the aorist is the third principal part. Let's remind ourselves what that means. So here's our principal part chart. The first column is the present. These are all the present active forms, but the imperfect also uses the column 1 here. Second column is future, and now we are on to the third column, which is going to be the aorist active, and the aorist middle also uses this column as well. So when you want to form the aorist middle, you come to this chart, see the principal part, and then you just have to add the middle endings rather than the active endings. So with the aorist, what are we dealing with? Let's go back to our chart here. So we've done the present, the imperfect, the future, and now we're going to do the aorist. So the aorist is a secondary tense, which means it has an augment, and it's in the past tense. How it differs from the imperfect is based off of aspect here. So generally, when we translate the imperfect, we will use a was verbing translation, where the aorist, we will use a simple past. I loosed, or I jumped, I destroyed, whatever it is. So that's the main difference here. So this just shows Greek is more interested in aspect than it is tense, because it has two past tenses. One for imperfective aspect, that ongoingness is often how it's translated, and then the simple past, just a summary, I did something. Okay. How the aorist is formed. So if we come to Mounce's master verb chart, notice here, the imperfect active, you have the augment, you use the present stem, meaning you use the first column, the principal parts. There's no tense formative here, but there's a connecting vowel, and then you use the secondary active, or the secondary endings, active in the middle for the middle passive. Okay, so that's the imperfect. Notice the difference between the imperfect and the aorist. So down here, we're to the first aorist active. There's also the augment, but now we're using the aorist active stem. Okay, so we're using the third column. And rather than we have a sa tense formative. But then the secondary active endings are used. But notice that there's no omicron or epsilon. Rather, you have a sa. So that's going to change the endings. So up here, you've been memorizing the endings with the connecting vowel, this omicron and epsilon. But notice that the true endings are without that connecting vowel. So when we do the aorist, you have to, in your mind, remove the o or and add a sa before. So let's go look at the aorist endings. So here. So rather than eluomen, we get elusamen. You get the sa instead of the omicron. And that's how all the endings are, except the first singular doesn't have a nu. So you'll have to pay attention to that. And another difference is the third singular actually is elusen without a sa. And I don't know why that is, it just is. So remember those two differences as you form form the aorist endings. The first singular doesn't have a nu, which is actually nice because that makes it different from the third plural, where in the imperfect, elion is both first singular or third plural. Here, there's a difference between the first singular and third plural in the aorist because of the nu. So the first one is the first singular, is different, and then the second is the third singular. For the middle, it's the exact same. So if we go back here, go back to the middle. So here we have the augment, just like that. We use the third principal part column. We have the sa, but rather than secondary active, we use secondary middle. So we're going to be down here. So rather than eliumen, we're going to have elisomen, elisato, and so on. The second singular is a bit different. So they actually have a note on this. So eliso is the second singular. Notice that so is the actual ending, which even in our imperfect, the sigma has dropped out and the omicron has contracted to form u. A similar thing happens in the aorist. So here, they say the original form was elisaso, which was shortened. The sigma drops out, and it's shortened to eliso by the loss of the sigma and the contraction of the alpha and the omicron. So the sa is right here. The sa has contracted with the omicron to form so. So that's where we get the form of eliso in our chart here. Other than that, they are straightforward. So you don't have to learn any new endings. You just have to know that the sa replaces the oe. And there it gives you examples. And then it goes on to exercises. So that's it for this lesson.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Bible Toolbox. All of the resources mentioned in this episode are posted on our website, thebibletoolbox.com. There you can also find out more information on how to give and support us. And we have loved all of the encouragement and feedback we've received from you. So thanks so much.